Welcome, Praetors, to the grim and grisly battlefields of the 31st millennium, because today I am talking about the True Sons of Cthonia, okay? And this is part of a much larger discussion we're going to get into in regarding the Siege of Cthonia narrative campaign book that Games Workshop recently put out, although it's only directly available from them, which I thought was kind of a bummer, but it is an incredibly cool book, and we're going to talk all about the lore that's within it. It is overwhelmingly cool stories. Like, the rule section is minimal, but it allows you to replay these epic narratives. And today we're going to start pulling that apart, right? It's a big story arc not to kind of jump into here for me and my channel, but I love Horus Heresy. And the way that I thought we would kind of introduce this topic is by focusing on the players within it here first to kind of give you a little context. And then we'll set the stage for the conflict with its epic, setting and what the forces are doing in this moment. But one faction in this narrative serves as both the backbone of the story, meaning, protagonist or antagonist, depending on what side of the war you're on here, but also, more importantly, it's the only recorded account. The True Sons of Cthonia, so it's important to know them, right? Their biases, their motives, and so on. We're kind of given this sense that these records were recovered from a ship that was lost or derelict, that was run by the True Sons of Cthonia, and then they were kind of recorded, so they're even not, like, the book itself is not trusting the information within it, which is great. I love that stuff when it comes to the Horus Heresy. Now, I would like to throw out very quickly that I have turned off all advertising on this channel because ads are so egregious here on YouTube. It does mean a lot to me, though, if you would support me and my family and the channel by using the affiliate link in the description down below. Noble Knight Games is here in the Midwest, and they have a huge selection of not just models, you should go support your local store when it comes to those kinds of things, but hobby supplies that smaller stores simply don't have. Lots of really cool brands for rusting and weathering effects. Go check it out, it would mean the world to me. It supports me, my wife, our cats, the whole channel. And lastly, I want to throw a pitch out for Goonhammer. If you are new to the Horus Heresy and trying to get started, Goonhammer has a ton of articles that are just so well written, introducing the Horus Heresy series and guides you through building lists and what to look out for, gives you some bearings on information. I just cannot recommend it enough. So to put it out there very plainly, the True Sons of Cthonia are a very unofficial group of legionnaires within the Sons of Horus Legion. Sons of Horus being the Lunar Wolves initially, then Sons of Horus, and then they would eventually evolve into the Black Legion. And there's something interesting about this particular chapter in the Horus Heresy, right? The True Sons of Cthonia really become prominent late in the heresy itself. Because while they are fully committed to Horus and his war against the Emperor, that's beyond question, they are looking around and seeing, other legions are starting to fall apart, and even some random elements within the Sons of Horus. I mean, there's the ones that are very visible, like towards the end of the Heresy. The Death Guard do not look good, right? They're having rough days. The Night Lords are like shredded in capes of people's skin. The Alpha Legion is just being in absolute pain in everyone's rear end, not really helping anyone. It's like help with a little lowercase h. Not to mention the Galvor Bach over in the Word Bearers. I mean, it's just mutations are running rampant. And they're seeing this and like, we are losing what we started the Great Crusade as, right? This like nice sharp spear tip, leading the Crusades. We are devolving. And they want to prevent this. We want to stay, unmutated, pure legionnaires, the sons of our father. And everyone else is becoming monsters and murderers. And so for this reason, the True Sons of Cthonia, as you might guess, are mainly Legion veterans who were around for a lot of the Crusade, and they want to slow things down or at least prevent the full dissolution of unity and structure within the Legion. They're looking around and seeing the unit and the rank and the structure devolving into what we would more commonly recognize as a chaos warband, where whoever is in charge gets, full control and they can like fight and wrestle for command. They kind of become icons within the Legion itself and rise to power that way rather than rank and that kind of thing. And not only is falling into Chaos Warband, a style of government a failure in their eyes, but also, more importantly, it pulls them away from that Chthonian honor and martial mastery. We'll remember that a lot of the Horus Heresy started because the recruits that they picked up on the Outer Worlds were so different than the ones in Terra. And a lot of the loyalists that were purged tended to be Terran-born. And these veterans are like, well, we ejected that part so that we could be more pure, more Chthonian in nature. A better representation of the galaxy as a whole, which, has merits to it, but like, the whole point is that we exercise that entire part of our legion. Why are we reintroducing it? And by reintroducing it, I mean any elements that can pull you back away from being Chthonian, your martial heritage, and all the ways that you practice war. So the Legion is changing, and not only are we not getting, staying sharp, but we're also drifting away from the ideal warrior as we see it. That vision is changing. Now, if you look on a galactic map, as I'll throw on a screen here, you can see that Cthonia is actually very, very close to Terra, Earth. So the second that the Heresy, was, I guess, realized, broadcast, announced, Cthonia was immediately in lockdown. It was immediately surrounded because at this point, it is the closest foothold that Horus has. All of their thoughts, at least Rogel Dorn's thoughts, is it makes the perfect staging ground to then assault Terra. So we're going to take Cthonia. That'll kind of be our bulwark, so to speak, of worlds that are kind of held by Horus. And we'll start to push the Terran borders out further. Which becomes very important because Cthonia is taken by the Imperial Fists. And the veterans, the Sons of Cthonia, were absolutely incensed by this. Because, most importantly, that meant no more Chthonian recruits. And knowing how vicious the legions were, they were probably actively wiping out that heritage that they were trying to keep so desperately. So you have what is essentially a subgroup start to emerge of people being like, we need to go back to Cthonia. We have got to liberate our homeland. And Horus, who you would presume would be the same way, is like, nah, it's just not that important. He has a much bigger vision for the galaxy as a whole, which I understand. But these legionnaires who really stepped up and said, we need to go back and get our homeworld, this is how you identify the true Sons of Cthonia. And that's where they kind of formed their loose brotherhood from. But you have to remember, these are, in fact, Legion veterans. And Cthonia is, in fact, on the way to Terra. In fact, it's the last step on the doorstep of Terra itself. And so once they got later in the Heresy, which is why all these events of the Siege of Cthonia take place very, very late in the Heresy, Horus turns his gaze to Terra, specifically bringing all his forces, to confluence together on there. And along the way, he picks out all of these guys who are so amped up about going to Cthonia, and he tasks them with reclaiming it. Essentially, I don't want to go out of my way to claim Cthonia because there's no actual, strategic value there. Because at this point, the legions are descending from, all directions. But it is important to me on some, honor level, and it would really appease a lot of my veterans, and I want them in my pocket. So, yeah, let's go do it. So on the path to Terra, we take a detour, a side quest, if you will, to have Armageddon on the homeworld of the traitorous Primarch. Ideally, these true Sons of Cthonia wanted to take back the planet, of course, and then restore their values, their virtues, and traditions to new waves of legionaries. We're the ideal warrior, so we need to reset this place to being the ideal warrior factory, which is to say Cthonia was not a terribly nice place. And so while it was strategically the sheer insult to the Legion's honor to these veterans meant that there had to be some kind of answer. And really this whole book is that story. How do we respond to someone insulting our honor by taking what is essentially the next generation of Sons of Horus? So in the last years of the Horus Heresy, this attack on Cthonia was exceptionally unexpected. At least the timing of it was, right? I talked about how it was sort of this last step on the doorway to Terra, but realistically, no one thought it was going to be assaulted because surely we would see other assaults, other places on the way towards it, right? We would have some announcement of its occupation, but no. And this is where we bring up that the traitorous powers have a one-up on the loyalists here, and that is warp travel. The chaos gods will quail the warp storms or propel them forward with speed to allow them to do things that, quite frankly, the loyalists aren't prepared for. You shouldn't be able to go through the warp this fast. Oh, this section of space has raw warp energy, so no one comes out of that direction. Boom! All of a sudden they do. So it is a assault that they knew it was going to be a strategic location for defense, but the timing of it was way off. They were very unprepared, the Imperial Fists were anyway. And foremost among the true sons of Cthonia, Varen Ashuradon, a renowned warrior who basically was the head of the petition for War Master to be like, hey, we need to go retake Cthonia. And Horus saw it as like a symbol. He wanted to like have his symbol of victory. He reclaimed his home, then he set off a new one on Terra. And so he granted Varen the authority to gather a fleet and get rid of the enemy. And Varen wasted no time in assembling his forces, right? He had his 23rd chapter of the Sons of Horus at the core of his fleet. The True Sons began gathering in the Beta Garmin system, awaiting voyage through the Empyrene to Cthonia. So this is them moving his forces. And to place this in timing, they watched Horus's armada moved towards Sol. Like they broke off a part of it and then went to Cthonia. And so they leave the main fleet thinking, well, Horus is going to be, the Emperor here in just a hot second. And they were measuring their determination to retake Cthonia against their desire of Horus to retake the Imperial Palace, take it initially. And so for this mission, 6 chapters of the Sons of Horus, comprising nearly 20,000 legionnaires, gathered for the attack. They would get a lot of opposition from several Space Marine legions that are kind of coming around to defend Cthonia, because at this point, Chthonia's alarms are going off, but not necessarily Terra's. So you have some forces that were local that wanted to respond to Cthonia first, and then projected this major battle is going to happen here shortly after on Terra. Varen had a large contingent of Imperial Army units along with him. He also had the Chthonian Headhunters, like a group of specialists, and various armed vehicles. It was a big old army that they sent down. And he basically came ready for a siege. He knows he's going against the Imperial Fist. He's like, we need to be able to crack open those eggs very quickly, decisively get in there and shut things down. They also had a contingent with Titans and stuff like that going with them. Word bearers also chipped in. And lastly, there was a Alpha Legion assault cruiser. Sigma 914 joined the fleet, and it was just kind of sat on the outside. Like, no one really knew what to do with it. Nobody wanted to, like, bring the Alpha Legion into their plans to, like, get their assistance. But they were there, and they did stuff, but nobody wanted their help. So breaking down the numbers more specifically on this invasion fleet, I have this image here on the screen, and it basically goes over the different kind of chapters, the numbers that are kind of considered for this campaign, and it gives you, it's almost like the list of characters that Games Workshop puts at the front of their Black Library books. Same concept. But if you were looking to theme your army around one of these narratives, this gives you all the information that you could want, as well as all the different paint plates and that kind of stuff, the schemes that are in the back of the book. It's really helpful. I am deeply tempted to just kind of lean into the True Sons of Cthonia as my makeup for my army, because I really love Reavers and I love Terminators. It's just the best. And so you can pause there if you'd like to check it out more, but let's talk about why is this cool. I do this at the end of all my videos, no matter what the lore content is, just kind of taking a step back and being like, why is this worth learning about? Well, we see the Legion on a path, from their mind, to victory, but also on the edge of disaster, right? In their mind, oh yeah, we're on the way to Terra, we're going to splinter off and deal with this issue on Cthonia because it's good for our martial pride and honor, and it makes us look better as warriors. But for the most part, we're winning. We're on the way to Terra. We're going to go knock down the doors. At the same time, the people who are the most, learned in the ways of the Legion, the War Master himself, are looking around and going, we are changing, right? And some of the changes are very obvious, of course, with mutations and stuff, but others are just much more insidious in terms of breaking down of command structure, respect, recruitment, the weapons we use, the way we train. Like, it's just kind of evolving. And so legionnaires aren't the sharp tip of the spear anymore. They respect rank less and less. They get dirty and sloppy. They're always looking for a fight. And it's just a far cry from how the legions have been depicted up till now. When you read the earlier Horus Heresy books, even on the traitorous side, they're not anything like the Chaos Space Marines of, 40k per se. So we get to see things in decay, and we have a snapshot from a very cool perspective watching that happen to the rest of the Legion, and I appreciate that. And this also is one of my favorite things about Games Workshop publications, a lot with Age of Sigmar battle tomes as well, but Horus Heresy really emphasizes the unreliable narrator, where the details in this book are taken from a collection of records, as I mentioned before, that were found aboard a ship that was recovered during the Scouring. It is recorded by a direct subordinate of Varens, the leader of this entire attack that we had mentioned before. And so it is the best source. It is a first-person, account of what they witnessed from the second in command of whatever. The biggest, assault on Cthonia possible. And so while it is the best source, you have to wonder, can you trust it? And so that's going to be a question that we hit repeatedly as we dive through the rest of the Siege of Cthonia. We're also going to do a video taking a look at the defenders, again, to give us some context, and then jump right in to the overarching story. So friends, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have questions or thoughts about the Sons of Horus, please go ahead and drop them below. Of course, I do love my Sons of Horus, and this fits really in with what I like to collect in terms of veteran units, things that don't just melt away very quickly on the tabletop. Let me know your thoughts down below, and please share this with anyone you know who enjoys Horus Heresy, as I will be covering it much more here on the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Happy wargaming.